Lots of stuff happened in wrestling this week, and by the end of this video, you're going to be caught up on all the best stuff. Let's go. Okay, so let's start off in WWE, and I think the biggest thing going on in WWE right now has to be the rivalry between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. We got the two of them in the same ring together at the same time on Raw for the first time since the Elimination Chamber. And I thought this was the best segment of the week. I know some people will definitely disagree with that. I've certainly heard from people who actually didn't really like the segment, had some issues with it. I thought it was great. I think Cena's whole bad guy run, I mean, granted, it's only been 2 promos, but they've been fantastic. His first promo, of course, he blamed the fans for treating him so awfully for 25 years. Which, if you were a fan during the decade that he was on top, he was treated poorly. He was treated very poorly. So he laid out that was the reason for him going all bad guy in his first promo. But then in this promo on Raw, he kind of laid out what he's going to do about it. What is he going to do about this anger and bitterness he has inside of him for the fans that booed him and treated him so terribly? And so he said, John Cena said, he's going to ruin wrestling for everyone, every fan, every wrestler. He's going to ruin it. And then he explained how he's going to do that. What he's going to do is win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania and retire with the belt, leaving everyone else to fight over what he called a fake belt. And, a fake toy belt, actually. And it was interesting the way that he got to that part. In the promo, he talked about how in 2005, when he brought out the spinner belt, people were really critical of it. And they blasted him for it, saying that the WWE title is not a toy. Brings that up and then says, guess what? When I retire with the title, you're all going to be fighting after a fake toy belt because I'm going to have the real one. I really do think that was a good sort of addition to this angle, this plan that Cena's going to retire the title and Cody's going to come in and be the guy that defends the title. Oh, I thought it was awesome. I really did. But I have heard from some people who aren't crazy about this angle because, one, there was no reference to The Rock. Like, The Rock was not mentioned at all during this promo. So it's still a little unclear what Cena and The Rock's relationship is. That hasn't been cleared up. But that's all right. Now, one thing that I have felt about this angle that I know some others have as well. Now, in my case, I don't care. I can totally get past this. It's fine. But it does seem like Cena's turn to the dark side was very sudden. Like, at the Elimination Chamber, he wrestled that whole match as a total good guy. And then he won the match as a total good guy. Then there's the segment at the end with Rock and Cody Rhodes and Cena. And Cena's reacting to everything in the ring like a good guy would react. He cheered when Cody rejected The Rock's offer. It wasn't until The Rock made the slit throat thing or Cena's facial expressions all changed. It was from good guy to bad guy instantly. Complete 180. No leading up to it. But I think Cena kind of explained that a little bit in his promo this week. He said, you know, you booed me. You treated me awfully. But I was learning from you. I was studying you guys every inch of the way. And so now I can take all of that knowledge that I built up and use it to stick it to the fans. At least that's sort of what I took from his promo as it concerns his motivation. Now, one part about Cena being a bad guy that I'm not crazy into, I'm fine with it. But this one aspect of it I'm not crazy into is that today's wrestling fans are more than willing to give Cena his flowers. They're more than willing to cheer for him. And that includes members of the WWE audience who were booing him during his decade on top. I think even those fans kind of want to cheer Cena now, or before The Elimination Chamber, they definitely wanted to cheer him. I think everybody's all in on booing Cena now, but he was getting the most positive reactions of his entire career in recent years. And I believe that the reason why the fans who used to boo Cena turned around and started to cheer Cena when he came back is because they recognize that Cena has been incredibly great for wrestling. He's been great for the perception of wrestling to people that are not fans of wrestling. They see his charity work. They see how much he takes being a role model seriously. And I just think wrestling fans today know that John Cena is never going to disappoint them in the way that Hulk Hogan disappointed them. John Cena is never going to make you feel embarrassed about being a wrestling fan. John Cena is good for wrestling, and I think a lot of people wanted the chance to be able to kind of show appreciation to him for that. But him turning heel is even better than being able to do that because it's answering what would have otherwise been one of the biggest what-ifs in wrestling. And also, Cena's really good at it. Having been someone who was a fan all throughout his time on top, the decade of Cena, I know that any time during that he chose to lean into a negative crowd reaction, he was fantastic at it. Of course, the biggest example of this was ECW One Night Stand 2006, his match against Rob Van Dam. In my opinion, that is one of the coolest WWE title changes to ever take place. It was an awesome moment, and it was Cena showcasing this bad guy that lives within him that is going to come out now. Okay, so quite possibly the next biggest storyline going on in WWE right now is the sort of three-way feud with CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. Now, I don't want to talk too much about this because I think there's going to be a big development in this storyline on SmackDown. I'm recording this on Thursday. I think many of you might be watching this after SmackDown, but we do have a triple threat with these three official for WrestleMania. But then on Raw, CM Punk cut a promo about how when they do the contract signing for the match on SmackDown, he's going to really give the contract a one-over because he wants to see how it gets him closer to his goal of main eventing WrestleMania. So I'm assuming there's going to be some type of stakes added to the match. Perhaps the winner gets a title shot. Perhaps the match takes place on night one and it leads to another match in night two. I don't know. But CM Punk definitely hinted that there are going to be some stakes added onto this match when they do the contract signing on SmackDown. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The women's world title match at WrestleMania continues to be in a state of flux. It seems like we're leading to a triple threat with Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair. But now scheduled for Raw next week is going to be a rematch. Io Sky defending the title against Rhea Ripley with Bianca Belair as the special guest referee. So I would expect a fairly significant storyline development to take place in that match. Now, just before we go any farther with WWE, I did want to bring up the storyline involving Naomi and Jade Cargill, where that might all lead to in WrestleMania. It's still sort of playing out on television, but I did want to bring up the gear that Naomi wore on SmackDown this week. She's got the black and yellow caution tape, and I just feel like this has to be a bit of an homage to Natalia's uncle Owen Hart and the gear he wore shortly after he turned bad guy, and he would join the Nation of Domination not too long after this as well. So maybe Naomi is saying enough is enough and it's time for a change. All right, so we just got 5 matches that are confirmed for the show at this point. So Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, Gunther versus Jey Uso, the triple threat that I just mentioned with Roman, Punk, and Rollins, Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. We know the Women's World Championship is going to be defended. We just don't know who, what, huh? And then there's a bunch of other storylines where they've kind of been teasing some possible matches. They've started to tease some dissension between Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. LA Knight's U.S. title match, still not sure where he's going. He's defending that against Braun Strowman next week. So still a lot of moving pieces to the WrestleMania card, but it's starting to come together. All right, let's turn our attention to All Elite Wrestling. And the card for AEW Dynasty is starting to take shape. And I'm actually wondering, I think there's a chance we could have 2 new world champions crowned at Dynasty. So on Dynamite this week, the main event match was Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus the Thunder Tits team of Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. Now, Toni Storm, I don't think anybody can debate this at this point. Toni Storm is one of, if not the most popular wrestlers on the AEW roster. Her rivalry with Mariah May now concluded after the Hollywood ending, and her first program now is with Megan Bayne. Now, they are building up Megan Bayne as this unstoppable monster, unbeatable force type of wrestler, and I'm wondering if she wins the title at Dynasty. I think there's a shot. Like, I would actually put it at maybe 50-50, maybe Storm is more likely to retain, but I think Megan Bayne really does have a chance of winning the title here. I think they're all in on her. Like, they have definitely decided, like, she's going to be a major part of the show. She's going to be Toni Storm's first big challenger after the conclusion of the Mariah May storyline, and they are just having her beat people left, right, and center. So, I wonder maybe Megan Bayne defeats Toni Storm, and then we go on a months-long storyline where Toni tries to recapture the belt. I don't know, but Toni will have to pull some trick out of her hat or whatever the saying is if she's going to beat Megan Bayne, since they're building her up to basically be the Goldberg of the division right now. The other world title match at Dynasty, Swerve Strickland versus John Moxley. And again here, I think that Swerve Strickland has a chance to win the world championship. I think he has a much better chance at winning the world title than Megan Bayne has on beating Toni Storm. I don't think anybody can debate that Swerve Strickland has been one of the most valuable members of the AEW roster in recent years, be it his rivalry with Hangman Page that just everyone loved, to his world title run, which was really well praised. Like, I don't remember hearing anybody talk about not liking Swerve Strickland's title run, and the guy just comes off as a major star, and it's something that's increasing too. Like, he just comes out and he's always been very confident. He's always had an amazing presence, but it feels like he just keeps growing, and I do believe that there's a good chance that he wins the world title for a second time at Dynasty. I mean, that's where he won the title the first time. So it could be like a little bit of a tradition for him. I also think maybe some people are ready to move on from the John Moxley Death Riders angle. I don't think the angle has hit in the way that many wanted it to. I think it started strong. I think the idea of, okay, we're the Death Riders, we're the remnants of the Blackpool Combat Club. We're not into this funny, hokey, indie, flippy stuff that some of these guys in AEW do. Some of these guys like Orange Cassidy, who are just silly and meme internet wrestlers or whatever. Whereas the Death Riders were serious. And I thought they set the tone for the storyline very well when one of the Top Flight brothers, I think it was either Dante or Darius Martin, tried to attack John Moxley by doing like a springboard giant flip thing, and Moxley just leaned out and gave him a forearm to the back of the head, just dropped one of the Martin brothers down to the mat, and it was this symbolic thing like, okay, you do all that flippy stuff, I'm just going to do a simple but effective move and take you down. Now, one of you AEW indie darling guys needs to figure out how to beat me for the title. And until then, it's going to stay locked away in this briefcase. That, like, underlining plot is awesome. But it just feels like from show to show, it failed to catch fire somehow. Another thing that they're building in AEW right now appears to be a match between Mercedes Moné and Athena. I think this is pretty significant because I remember when they started the little program with Billy Starkz and Mercedes Moné, and I thought to myself, well, why wouldn't they just do this with Mercedes Moné and Athena? And as it turns out, it was leaning to them doing Mercedes Moné and Athena, as it was after Moné defeated Billy Starkz. She cut an interview in the back and said something along the lines of, who even trained that Billy Starkz girl? And of course, in Ring of Honor, Billy Starkz is the minion of Athena. So I think Athena versus Mercedes Moné is a very interesting match because you have two wrestlers with very long undefeated streaks coming in. Moné hasn't lost since she came back. Athena hasn't lost in forever. She's the forever ROH champion. So somebody here is going to lose. Also, just Mercedes Moné and Athena are two fantastic wrestlers, and they will have a fantastic match. Another thing that they are building in AEW right now is a little bit of dissension within the ranks of Rated FTR, specifically with Dax Harwood and Cope. So we saw after the Moxley versus Cope match, Dax Harwood wouldn't help Cope up. And then we had a sit-down interview with all three members and Tony Schiavone on Dynamite this week. And they did that thing where they make it seem like, oh, well, we had a little dust up there, but then Dax apologized and now everything's good. But then little hints of dissension came out again during the interview. It started when Dax Harwood said, you know what, I'm thinking FTR, we need to get back in the tag team title hunt. Let's challenge the Hurt Syndicate. And Cash Wheeler was like, actually, I was thinking the three of us would challenge the Death Riders for the trios titles at Dynasty. And Harwood kind of acts like, oh, yeah, no, that's great. That's cool. Yeah, no, I'm down. And so that match was later made official. Rated FTR versus the Death Riders for the trios titles. You can tell, okay, it's very clear that they're not entirely on the same page. So that's something to look out for in AEW right now, too. And AEW has also had a bunch of wrestlers declare for the Owen Hart Cup. Of course, the goal there is you win the single elimination tournament, and then you move on to challenge for the World Championship at All In this year, of course, in Arlington, Texas. And so we now have Will Ospreay, Hangman Page, and now Jay White have all declared for the tournament. Okay, so moving on to New Japan Pro Wrestling, really not much to talk about. They've been off the road since the conclusion of the New Japan Cup. They go back out on Saturday. And then next weekend, it's Sakura Genesis on April 5th with David Finlay, the New Japan Cup winner, challenging Hiroki Goto for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And I think there's a shot that David Finlay wins the title there. Hiroki Goto, I'm a big fan of Hiroki Goto winning the title after watching him not win the title for so many years. He'd win the New Japan Cup or something, he'd challenge for the title, and then he just wouldn't win it. But I do think he's a beatable champion, and I do think David Finlay's a guy who could possibly beat him for the title. So we could have 3 new world champions that weekend. All right, let's end off with a bunch of news items. So here are the big news items that happened this week that you should know about. So Saraya, formerly Paige in WWE, she has announced that she is leaving AEW. Now, her contract was set to expire, reportedly, in September. I listened to a bunch of interviews that she does. It sounds like she has an acting role lined up, but that she can't talk about it. She is getting out of her contract early, and she said online that this was a mutual agreement between Saraya and AEW. In terms of her possibly going back to WWE, it certainly sounds like that door is open, that it might happen down the line, but I don't think it's going to happen immediately. It really does sound like she's got something outside of wrestling that she's going to do for a little bit first. Also, Ricochet and Samantha Irvin were married recently. That's why Ricochet did not appear live on Dynamite, on account of his wedding. TNA Wrestling let go a bunch of executives this week, and one of them was Gail Kim. And this has shocked a bunch of people because everybody loves Gail Kim. She'd been with the company forever. Of course, she'd been one of the greatest knockouts wrestlers of all time in TNA's knockouts division. Well, nah, she's the greatest knockout of all time. Come on. In terms of where Gail Kim could end up next, Jim Ross wasted no time on his podcast saying he thinks Tony Khan needs to reach out and bring Gail Kim to AEW. And I doubt there would be many people who would disagree with that sentiment. And Mina Shirakawa announced at a press conference earlier this week that she is leaving Stardom and she will be joining All Elite Wrestling full-time starting after WrestleMania weekend. So her contract with Stardom runs out in March, but she's agreed to stay on for a couple of shows in April. And then Stardom is running a couple of shows in Las Vegas over WrestleMania weekend. And that will actually be her last set of shows with the company. She goes to AEW after that. Thank you very much, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the like button. Click the notifications bell. Leave a comment. Add me onto ICQ. Whatever. I'll see you again next week.